Hey guys, welcome to Discussion and Real Analysis with Akhilesh Kumar. In this series, we are discussing on topics of the book Principles of Mathematical Analysis with Walter Rudin. The target of this video is to understand the contraction mapping principle. To understand this contraction mapping principle, which is also called Banach's fixed point theorem, the prerequisites are the definition of complete metric space and fixed points of mapping, contraction mapping on metric spaces. So first we will quickly understand those, and then we will go to the theorem, contraction mapping principle, and we will understand the proof also in a very simple manner. Now, for understanding the completeness of a metric space, let us recall one property of a metric space, that every convergent sequence is Cauchy. So that is always for a metric space, that if you have a convergent sequence in a metric space, it is Cauchy sequence also. But its converse is in general not true. That a Cauchy sequence may not be a convergent sequence. So for that means if its converse is also true in a matrix space, that in the sense that every Cauchy sequence of a matrix space is convergent also in that matrix space, then that matrix space is called complete matrix space. Now, in this regard, I would like to specify one particular thing when we talk about convergent sequence in a matrix space. So when we say that sequence is convergent, let us say Xn be a sequence in a matrix space X, we say it is convergent in X. We simply say that Xn converges to something, but we have to be specifically sure when we say convergent in X, that means convergent in the matrix space, then that particular point should be in that matrix space. In general, if this matrix space X is a universal set, that is not a big issue. But if the points are coming from a universal set, which is a superset of this matrix space, in that case, the issue can arise, and we would have to think about whether this point belongs to this matrix space particularly, or just outside the matrix space, but in the universal set. So actually, this concept is discussed through means if X is a matrix space with a matrix say D, and if Y is a subspace of that matrix space, and suppose we are discussing about completeness of this one or convergence of a sequence, say some Y1, Y2, Y3, so on, if it is convergent in Y or not. So first of all, what we have to understand is that Y1, Y2, Y and so on, this sequence is convergent, and it converges to what point, say P, that P should belong to Y in that particular case, and not just in X, means not outside here but inside Y. So that is we have to be particular to understand the meaning of convergence. So that is how that is what uh, the definition of convergence of a sequence, if Xn converges to P in metric space X, the definition is that if we have for each epsilon greater than 0, uh, there exists n naught belonging to n, such that all the members of the sequence after n naught, including n naught also, their distance from P is less than epsilon, means they are coming closer and closer to P. Their distance becomes less than epsilon after some n naught. And there is Cauchy sequence that we know. What is Cauchy sequence? In that case, we don't have to consider about limit or something. It simply discusses about the distance between any two members of the sequence after some n naught. So the definition is very simple, means very similar to the definition of convergence. Here simply what we say is that a sequence is Cauchy in X if and only if for each epsilon greater than 0, there exists n naught belonging to n, means n is a natural number, such that all the sequence members, their distance becomes less than epsilon for all the members after n naught. So that is what the broad meaning of this one is. So that is how we have to understand this one. So what happens to be for a metric space to be complete? We have already understood that a metric space is said to be complete if and only if every Cauchy sequence in a metric space is convergent in X also. So that is one. Now here we have just one example about set of all real numbers. It's a matrix space with respect to usual metric, means absolute distance. So how we find out the distance between 2 points dx comma y, where x and y are real numbers, is given by absolute value of x minus y, the distance between them. So with respect to that usual metric, it's a complete metric space that comes out through Cauchy's convergence criteria, because every convergence sequence is Cauchy, and every Cauchy sequence in R is convergent. So that's the Cauchy convergence criteria. And the means one example is also here, that one metric space which is not complete. Let us see that Q, set of all rational numbers, it's a subset of R. So with respect to usual metric, it's a non-empty set. So we can prove that this is a subspace of R. So it becomes in itself a metric space with respect to the same usual metric, but it is not complete. Why? The reason is, means we can have a sequence, this one. If you see that this is a sequence in R, but in particularly what this sequence will give us, it will give this one as a rational number, and a power of a rational number will again be a rational number. So means for every n, the sequence members are in particular rational numbers. So this is a sequence in R, but in particular this is a sequence in Q. So but particularly where this converges to, if we talked about the sequence in R, this converges to E, set of all that exponential number, universal exponent number E, it converges to that one. But E is not a rational number. So that means if we talk about a sequence, the sequence in R, the superset, the universal set, then means yes, it converges to E, because E belongs to R. But if we consider the sequence in Q, then this sequence is yes, exactly, all the members are in Q, but does this converge? No, it cannot converge there. But yes, definitely being convergent in R, it's Cauchy, so it's Cauchy in Q also, because the usual metric is same. So I repeat here, specific point, that it's a Cauchy sequence and convergent sequence in R. It's both, but it's not convergent sequence in Q, because its limit is not in Q. If we talk about its limit, yes, we can find out the limit, but in this metric space, the limit does not belong. So this is not convergent in Q. We'll not say that it's not convergent. We'll say this sequence is not convergent in Q. But yes, it's a Cauchy sequence, because Cauchy sequence does not need any kind of limit. So for Cauchy sequence, we have to simply say about, if you remember the definition, what is the definition? The definition is that a sequence is Cauchy if the distance between members is less than epsilon after some number, a natural number n naught. So yes, this happens here, because this happens here in R, and all the members of the sequence are in Q also. So it's a Cauchy sequence also. So yes, this becomes a Cauchy sequence which is not convergent in Q. So that's how this Q with respect to usual metric is not a complete metric space, but R with respect to usual metric is a complete metric space. There are some results discussed here with this help of this lemma. If you see that it says that if xn is converging to a point P, then if we take all the points of this sequence, means the range of the sequence, if it is an infinite set, then P is a limit point of this range set. And if it is range set is a finite set, then after some time all the members should become P. So it's a lemma which we can prove like that. Its proof is given here. Over that, this actually is useful for proving that if we have a closed subset of a complete metric space, it is complete also. Means the subset of a metric space is subspace also. So what will happen? This closed subset of this complete metric space, when we talk about this subset as a metric space, subspace, so it will be complete. So this word is not clearly written here. It is complete. And the same way, the converse is also true, that every complete metric space, a complete subspace of a metric space is closed. So it's not exactly the converse, but similar to converse. So if we have a complete metric space, every closed subset is complete subspace. But here, if we have any matrix space, but its subspace, if we get as a complete subspace, then that subspace as a subset of this matrix space will be closed. So that is how the proof is also here given here. So that is how it can be proved. I'll not go into the proof of that one, these two theorems, but I need to target the theorem. So contraction mapping principle. So I'll go to the next review which we needed is fixed points and then for contraction mapping. Now what we have to consider is that if we have one set and a mapping from this set to itself, an element of this set is called fixed point of that mapping T if and only if this mapping T takes that particular element P to itself, means not to any other element but to itself. So that point is called fixed point because this mapping is not changing its image is itself. So that is how it's a fixed point. Now, if you try to understand this concept, means let us observe this concept through examples. One very particular easiest example is of identity mapping. Let us consider identity mapping from set X to set X. What it will do if I put it here I identity mapping. So I will take every element of this set to itself only. So in that case, how many fixed points will be there for identity mapping? For identity mapping, all the points of the set will be fixed points. So it is fixing all the points. It's not changing the image to any other point. So that is how. So this is the first example what I have discussed is actually this is for identity mapping. Here are some examples done for mapping from R to R. If we consider this, then the fixed points will be 0 and 1 only. For this one, the fixed points will be 0 and plus minus 1. And for this type of mapping, which is being a translation only, if from R to R, we translate x to x plus 1. So it's all translating. So all the real line will be translating to one unit right side. So no point is being fixed. All the points are translating. So that is how this is the mathematical reason for this kind of mapping on from R to R. There is no fixed point. There are a few examples for mappings from R square to R square. So that is how these are given. You should be able to do yourself. So all these mappings are in which how can we find fixed points. The description is given here. You may pause the video and just try to do yourself all these things. I'll not go into it because these are simple, very trivial examples. Now let us come to the third prerequisite for our main aim, the contraction mapping theorem. We have to understand what is a contraction mapping. For here, we have to consider X as a metric space. So here, what we are considering is a mapping from a metric space to itself. We will say that this mapping is a contraction mapping if and only if there exists a real number between 0 and 1. If a specific reason for saying real number between 0 and 1, such that what should happen? The distance between the image points of any two points x and y. So what are their image points? Tx and ty. The distance between these two image points will be less than equal to alpha times the distance between original points x and y. So what is actually happening here? The distance between what we find out, suppose distance between x and y, and if we find out distance between their image points tx and ty, so the distance between image points will be less than equal to alpha times this distance. For every pair of points this should happen. If this happens, then we say that this mapping is a contraction mapping. Now I'll just make you visualize this all concept of contraction mapping. If we are considering some matrix space, now you just observe if there exists some real number alpha between 0 and 1. So it's a positive real number, but it is strictly less than 1. So that means using this condition that alpha is strictly less than 1, can I put further that this part is strictly less than 1 times distance between x and y. So it is strictly less than 1 into distance x and y, dx x comma y. So what will happen, that means this will say that this distance of image points is less than equal to alpha times distance is strictly less than distance of x comma y. So effectively through translation of the inequality less than equal to, what we will get, that for a contraction mapping, means if it is a contraction mapping, if this alpha exists between 0 and 1, then in particular the distance between the image points will be strictly less than the distance between x and y, the original points. So that is how what we are getting, means the distance of the image points will be shrinking. So if we have means some set, so all the points will be shrinking, means the distance will be coming closer and closer to something. So it's just like opposite of the Big Bang theory. So if Big Bang theory says that at the origin of the universe all the things bursted and it had a big bang, and all the things are moving apart, distant apart from each other. So all the distance from between any two objects in the universe are is increasing. The distance between any two objects is increasing. So it's a big bang. So reverse of that is what? Contraction, means it's contracting. So from the distance between any two objects in the universe will come nearer and nearer. So there will be, the objects will be coming closer and closer. So the way we discuss about the center point of the universe, or the point where the Big Bang existed, so that point, so that point will be of some special thing. So from that is called origin of the Big Bang. But if we talk about the reverse, means contraction. So then in that case we will be talking about if universe is contracting to some particular point. So means it is coming to closer and closer to something. So that's actually the inspiration comes in. So for contraction mapping, to discuss about the next topic, next concept called fixed points. So if we have a contraction mapping, then for a mapping we can discuss about fixed points also. So in fact, first we will discuss about, we have already discussed about the fixed points. So when we have a contraction mapping, so we can discuss about the fixed points also. That is actually the Banach fixed point theorem, which is also called contraction mapping theorem or contraction mapping principle. So I'll just come to it. Its statement is what? Every contraction mapping on a complete metric space has a unique fixed point. So in the previous slide, what I was discussing about, when we were discussing about contraction mapping, so we were discussing that all the objects or all the points are coming closer and closer. So we had an idea that yes, we can have a fixed point. But if we are discussing something like here in a complete metric space, then contraction mapping will do what? It will give us unique fixed point. Definitely, it will give a fixed point, and that fixed point will be unique, means no other fixed point. So that is what the contraction mapping principle is. So before going to that result, what I'll suggest is that for contraction map, understanding the contraction mapping better, you can go through with these examples, which will make you understand what about contraction mapping what about contraction mapping in a metric space is all about. So it's an example from r square to r square. So it says that t for any point becomes half of that. So it's coming closer and closer to something. Actually, if you, I'll just make you picturize for Rn or R2 in particular. Suppose this screen is R2, so it's a plane. So let us assume that this point is origin. So what will happen is, let us consider this origin as say y. So what is this y? This is 0 comma 0. And what is point x1 comma x2? So this is a point. So this is a point x and this is a point 0. So in particular, what will happen? We will say that t of x comma 0, and when we will t of x and t of 0. So what will be t of 0? In that case, t of 0 will be 0. So in that case, it's 0. And what is t of x? It's x by 2. So it will be actually a point if it is x1 comma x2, and if this is 0, then x1 by 2 and y1 by 2, x1 by 2 and x2 by 2 will be a point in between the line joining these 2 points, this x and this 0. So it's coming closer to 0. So actually what is going to happen if we consider this as a matrix space. In particular, this is a non-linear space also, so we have 0 also. So in a non-linear space, they will be coming closer and closer to 0. In fact, you can take this as an open question to prove, because we have considered a matrix space. Suppose let us consider Rn as a matrix space. So in particular, it's a non-linear space also with respect to the norm defined through usual metric, that means Euclidean norm. Yes, definitely it will be, first of all, it's a complete metric space. That's an example to be proved. First of all, you should be able to prove that Rn is a complete metric space. So over that complete metric space, so what should you be able to prove? That this contraction mapping T defined by Tx is having x by 2. This distance means distance is getting halved. So you will be able to prove that for Rn, the origin is its fixed point. So I'll ask you to verify this for interested learners. So that's an open question to be proved. Now I'll come to this part, which is contraction mapping theorem. What we are going to learn in this is, if we are having a contraction mapping on a complete metric space, then it will have a unique fixed point. So if XD is a complete metric space and T is a mapping from X to X, which is contraction mapping, that means contraction mapping means D of Tx comma Ty. So here bracket is being removed to remove the confusion that what bracket we are considering, distance of something or T of something. So T bracket X is what? Tx. T bracket Y is Ty. So what does the contraction mapping means? Because T is a contraction mapping, so there exists alpha between 0 and 1. So that distance between Tx and Ty is less than alpha times distance between X and Y for every pair X and Y in the metric space X. So that's the notation. So what we have to prove? We have to prove that there exists a unique point P belonging to X, which is fixed point corresponding to T. So it's what we have to prove means the conclusion comprises of two parts. The first part of the conclusion is that there exists a fixed point corresponding to this contraction mapping T. And second, what we have to prove? That this particular fixed point P is unique. No other fixed point is there. That means if there is one fixed point P, and suppose let us say that Q is also a fixed point, so we will have to prove for uniqueness that Q is nothing but P only. So that's how the proof will be. So before going into the actual proof, I'll just put outline of the proof here. So what is the outline of the proof? What we have to do is, it's all about 5 steps. What are these steps? First, we will construct a sequence, because we have a complete matrix space. So we have to, what we will do is, for using the completeness of matrix space, we will need to create a Cauchy sequence. And that Cauchy sequence, because of completeness of matrix space, will be what? Convergent. So just recalling from that, we will be able to understand that we will be constructing a sequence in this matrix space. And how we are going to construct is using this mapping T. I'll just show you through here through diagram. So how we are going to construct the sequence. And once this sequence is constructed in our step number 1, we'll show in step number 2 that this is a Cauchy sequence. Just going through the means inspiration, the motivation that we are given that matrix space is complete. So we'll show that this sequence is the Cauchy sequence. And once we show this sequence is a Cauchy sequence, we'll use this completeness of matrix space to show say what, that it's a convergent also. Now when we say that this given sequence which we have constructed, x1 x2 x3 and so on, xn sequence, it's a Cauchy sequence in X, and therefore convergent sequence in X. When we say convergent sequence, that means what? Its limit means if it converges to P, then P, the limit should be in X itself. So that is what we are going to prove through that using the completeness of matrix space. And now means we have got what limit means, what we have constructed. The fourth step will be what, that this point P, which is limit of the convergence sequence constructed in the first step, this limit of the sequence, this P, will show that it's a fixed point of this mapping T. How this P is related to T? Because this P is limit of the sequence created using T. That we will learn in the step number 1. So now once we will get this P, we'll show that this is a fixed point. What the next step will be, we will show that this P is a unique fixed point. If there is no other fixed point different from P. So that is all the outline of the proof is. Now let us go into the proof. All the steps, they're actually easy if we are able to understand this. And this construction we'll be able to see. Now how the sequence will be in a matrix space. So I'll just for your pictorial view, let us suppose that this R2 is there as a matrix space. So for just example, I'm saying R2 as a matrix space, and definitely it's a complete matrix space. um, so here what we are considering is, suppose a sequence, how the sequence will be. So first point of the sequence x1, second point of the sequence x2, x3, x4, xn, and so on. So that is how we will have a sequence. Now when we say we have a sequence, how we are going to construct this is that, suppose we have first point, say let me consider x naught. So in general, we start the sequence by x1, x2, x1. There's no harm if we start the sequence by x naught. So instead of saying first point as x1, I'll say x naught. So the next number is x1, x2, x3, and so on. So x naught will be a point, and how we are sure? I'll just put a remark here. How we are sure that there exists x naught belonging to x? Because it's a metric space, means in the definition of metric space itself, we say that metric spaces are non-empty set. So definitely we will have at least one point in this metric space. So what will happen is, how we will construct this second point from this first got x naught. From this, we will apply t to it, and we will get x1. So what is x naught? This is simple x naught first point. So what is x1? It is t of x naught. So this is x1. How will get x2? This is t of x1, previous one. How will get x3? It's t of x2. So means we'll apply t mapping to this point, we'll get the next point. We'll apply this t mapping to this point, we'll get next point. Then to t to this, we'll get next point, this next point, and so on. So that is how it is written. So we have x naught. So what is x1? It's t of x naught. What is x2? T of x1. What is x3? T of x2, and so on. So in general, what is xn? T of x n minus 1, previous one. But this eventually will be coming in terms of t composed many times for x naught. Now let us see it. So what is x1? It is t of x naught. Now when we put x2 is t of x1, what was x1 in terms of this? Let us substitute here. So what this will be, t applied to t x naught. So it's 2 times t applied to x naught composed, t composed here. Same way, what will be x3? It will be t composed with t applied to x2. But what is x2? It is x2 is t composed twice applied to x naught. So that will give us what? X3 is t composed 3 times applied to x naught. So in general, what is xn? It is t composed n times applied to x naught. So that is how we have got a sequence in this matrix space X. So that is what the first step was, that we will construct the sequence through the use of mapping T. Now, what is our next step? We will prove that the sequence is Cauchy, and this is the only crucial step of this proof. Once this is done, other steps are mostly simple steps. So this step is that will prove that the sequence Xn is a Cauchy sequence. It's a simple first part of that. How to prove that sequence Xn is Cauchy? We will what we do is simply arbitrary epsilon greater than 0 is taken, and then we have to prove what, that distance between any two pair of points will be less than epsilon if we take those points after the sequence number n naught. So after n naught, all the sequence members will be having distance less than epsilon. That is what we have to prove. Now, because we have already seen in the construction of sequence that through the use of mapping T, we first get x naught, then x1, x2, and so on. So it's a sequence actually. So when we talk about the pair of points, means xn and xm, definitely in case if these two are different subscripts, m and n, what will happen? Some will be coming later, some will be coming earlier. So it will be just like d of x10 comma x15 or x18 comma x20. So at least one of the two substrates will be bigger, or they can be equal also. So let us, without loss of generality, assume that this n is bigger or equal to m. In that case, what will happen? So what is the change between them? Suppose xm is here. So how it will come through? X0, x1, x2, x3, and so on. Then xm will come first. Then so on, we will increase the substrate from m to m plus 1, m plus 2, and so on. Then after some time, n will come. So that is how this distance between xn and m, or xm comma xn, which is same because of symmetry. So we'll consider this distance. Why we have used this symmetry, I'll just tell you. Actually, we'll play the trick of putting the triangular inequality, and that triangular inequality is again inspired from what we are getting points. How? First x0, then x1, x2, and so on. So xm will be here, then xn2, xm plus 1, then xm plus 2, and so on up to xn. And we have all steps. So first step, second step, so on, we'll have all these. So all these points we are going to use here for the triangular inequality axiom, generalized in this case. So what we will do is, the distance of xn and xm and xn will be less than equal to distance between xm and the next point xm plus 1, then plus distance of xm plus 1 comma xm plus 2, and so on, the distance added up, the last point distance between xn minus 1 and xn, because just before xn was what point? Xn minus 1. So that is how, if you see the triangular inequality, so how you reach there. So from xm, and using all these points, their distances, and then xn, that is what this triangular inequality shows. I put this arrow in red just to indicate that this is a trick step. You have to remember that triangular inequality is going to be applied in the proving while proving that xn is a Cauchy sequence. Now this is done, means you will be thinking that abruptly why triangular inequality has come. There is a reason behind. What the reason is? The construction of these the sequence t of something. So let us consider all these distances of the points one by one. So what is xn and xm plus 1? Then same way we'll consider distance between xm n plus 1 and xm plus 2. All these points distance will consider like this, and actually we will prove that these distances are less than equal to something, means this alpha. What is alpha? Coming from contraction mapping, this alpha. So this alpha power something, all these distances are less than equal to the distance of the initial 2 points. Means how this sequence started? The sequence started with x0 and the next point x1. So only the initial 2 points x0 and x1 will be basically playing the role. So all the distances of subsequent points, means xm and x plus 1, m plus 1, xm plus 1 and xm plus 2, and so on, all these distances will be less than equal to alpha some power into distance of x0 and x1, x0 and x1, and so on. So once this, means this will actually help us to put all these things here, and we will get this one. So means I'm actually jumping this step. It's an easy one. I'll come back because the flow of the proof is there. So we'll do what? Distance of xm and xn is less than equal to what? Means this one. What is this? This is less than equal to alpha times alpha power m times this one. Same way, this distance is less than equal to alpha power m plus 1, same thing. And so on. Last one is less than equal to alpha power m minus 1, distance between x0 x1. If we club all these together, so what we will get is distance between xm and xn is less than equal to, now all these scalars will come in. So it's xm, alpha power m, alpha power m plus 1, and so on, alpha power n minus 1. All these points will be, because all this sum is there. So in this sum, this is common, d of x0 x1, that will come common, and we will have what? Now you will observe this. You can pause this and try to observe what this is. It's some progression. uh, Before I go into the progression, you can pause into and think about this progression and how this sum comes in. That will make it easy. But I'll just pause it here and go back and to complete the part which is still remaining. We had to actually show that how all these distances are coming to be less than equal to this. Let us see. Means distance of xm and xm plus 1. What are they actually? We can go back. Means how they were obtained. They were obtained by t mapping applied to the previous point. So xm was obtained by t applied to xm minus 1, and xm plus 1 was applied by applying t to xm, means the previous point. Same way we have got this. Means now once we have got this, what is this? Distance of image points. And now there comes the role of contraction mapping. What does contraction mapping says? The contraction mapping says that distance between image points will be less than equal to alpha times the distance between original points. So that is what is being the role of that is being played here. So distance of image points will be less than equal to alpha times the original points. What are original points here? Xm minus 1, xm. So that comes here, distance between them. Now again we can apply the same thing. Means what is this? Xm minus 1. It is t of xm minus 2. And what is this? T of xm minus 1. Therefore means again this will be less than equal to alpha times. So that is why again applying alpha square comes, and so on. This will go up to what? Means up to x naught and x1. Now you can count how we started. We started with m minus 1. So we have first alpha, then second alpha at m minus 1. So at 0 means x0, how many alphas would have come? If for m minus 2 it was alpha square, so for m minus m, which is 0, how many alpha will come? M alpha will come. So that is how we get that for d, this distance is less than equal to, means the first substitute is m, so it is less than equal to alpha m, alpha power m, into this basic distance, the distance between initial 2 points. Same way, means the distance between x m plus 1 and the next point will be less than equal to alpha power m plus 1, distance between original points. So this subscript is playing the role for alpha power this thing. We have to simply identify the pattern. So that is how what we get is the distance between the last point. What was in this triangular inequality? Last pair, the distance between xn minus 1 and xn. So this is less than equal to alpha power n minus 1 into distance between the original pair, and that is being played here. Now by this time you would have already understood that what this is an arithmetic series, but finite arithmetic series. Sorry, it is a geometric series. It's a geometric series, but with finite number of terms. What is the first term? It's alpha power m. But I can take alpha power m common. So what is the first term now? It's 1. Then next term is alpha. Then next term is alpha square and so on. Then this is the last term. Now how can we do is the sum of the series. So that's the formula, that alpha term alpha m remains outside. So the sum is of finite number of terms of a geometric series is given by 1 minus alpha times this thing, this whole power, plus 1 upon 1 minus the common ratio. The common ratio is alpha. So that is how we get it, and this the distance between initial 2 points is still coming here. Now, what is this? This is the distance between xn and xn less than equal to this distance. That is how it is coming. Why it is coming so? Actually, this part is removed. Why it is removed means see what alpha was. Alpha was between 0 and 1. So its all powers will be again between 0 and 1. So 1 minus that will be again between 0 and 1. So it will be this part will be strictly less than 1. You can do this in rough work. So you'll be able to do that because alpha is greater between 0 and 1. So 1 minus this is also between 0 and 1. Therefore, it is strictly less than 1. So this all part is less than all this thing without this one, means 1 here. So that is how we get here. This is here, this is here, this is here, and this is less than 1. Less than, we can say in general, less than equal to 1 or precisely less than 1. So we are more safe with less than equal to 1. Okay. Now what this is, alpha power m, that is what special is. It is going to play some role here, but this all is fixed because alpha, as per the definition of contraction mapping, is fixed. So 1 minus alpha is fixed. The distance between x naught and xm, they are original 2 points of the sequence, so it is also fixed. What is varying with respect to the subscript m and say maybe n? What is varying? This power is varying. So what we put is this as coefficient k, which is fixed, which is greater than 0 because numerator is greater than 0 and alpha is less than 1. So this part is greater than 0. So this greater than or equal to 0. Maybe by chance these 2 points are equal, so we can have equal to 0 also. So it is greater than or equal to 0. So what we get is k times alpha power m. Now what the specialty about this alpha power m is? Again means alpha is between 0 and 1. So if we put m as m tends to infinity, which is again means trivial similar thing as in the Cauchy sequence definition. So for all n and m greater than equal to n naught, so m can be any higher value for natural numbers. So in that case, what we are going to use here is that as m will be higher and higher, so this alpha power m will be tending to 0. So that is what is going to play a role here, because if alpha power m, the sequence in terms of m, if that tends to 0 means the limit is 0, then again in terms of alpha or its coefficient we can have something less than, and means if it is limit is 0, so what will happen, corresponding to epsilon by something which we can adjust, there exists n not belonging to n such that the distance between alpha power m and 0 will be less than that something for all n greater than equal to n naught. See, we were trying to prove that the sequence is Cauchy, so we were in search of some n naught natural number. Here we have got it, n naught, but in context of alpha power m sequence converging to 0, which will play the role here. We'll say that this distance is less than equal to this thing is less than, see, what is alpha power m? Here we have got no distance between this is nothing but alpha power m. So alpha power m is less than epsilon. So let us for all m greater than equal to n naught. Now let us see what we have got. If we club this, means this is less than equal to this. This is condition number 3. And what is the next condition? Alpha power m is less than this part for all m greater than equal to n naught. So let us club these two together, means dxn xm is less than equal to this thing, which is less than equal to k times, this is k times. So that is how it has come together. If you see this is less than equal to this, and this part is less than equal to this. So if we club it together, means through translativity of inequality relation less than equal to, what we get is distance between xn and xm is strictly less than epsilon into k upon k plus 1. And now here, if this is over again, this is less than epsilon. Why? Because this fraction in this numerator is lesser and denominator is bigger, and they are both positive, so it is strictly less than 1. So that is how this full becomes less than epsilon for all n greater than equal to n naught, in which we assume this relation. So what we have got? We have actually got the proof of Cauchy sequence, that xn and xm, their distance becomes less than epsilon after n naught. That's we have proved that xn is a Cauchy sequence. So we have completed our step number 2. So what was our step number 3? That we have got Cauchy sequence, this xn, and therefore by using the completeness of matrix space, it's convergent also. What is the meaning of convergent? I'll not go to the next slide before you try to understand. Recall again, what is convergent sequence? A sequence is convergent means this xn will be convergent if the limit exists where, in the matrix space x itself, means xn converges to say p where P is where the P is in matrix space X. So that is what the speciality of limit is. We have got xn converges to P where P is a point in X. So now what is the next step we have to prove? We have to prove that this limit P is fixed point of the matrix space. So now we'll prove that fixed point means with respect to T mapping, this point P is fixed point. That is the meaning of fixed point. T applied to P should be P only. So we have got the limit. We will prove that. Again, we have to put some small trick into it, but it's easy one. I'll just make you understand that. Once you practice all these things, you will be able to understand what all these things are. Here, we have to show that these two things are equal. What is P? It's a point in X. But what is TP? It's again image in X because T is a mapping where T is a mapping from X to X. So P is also in X and TP is also in X. So what will happen is it's also a point in X. So we have to prove that these 2 points in X are equal. So because it's a matrix space, so that's the trick to prove that 2 points in a matrix space are equal. We equivalently show that their distance between them is equal to 0. And therefore the trick comes here is that we will say that let if possible their distance is strictly greater than 0, and once it is strictly greater than 0 we will do some trick, and later we will prove that some contradiction comes in, that we'll see that how the contradiction comes in, and that will, by that contradiction we will show that no, this distance cannot be greater than 0, it has to be equal to 0. So the trick is again means because this distance is greater than 0, so we will choose some epsilon between this positive point, because this is positive point, upon 1 plus alpha is also a positive point, and therefore this full is a positive point, and 0 and this positive point in between, let us choose epsilon. Again, it's a trick, but why we are going to choose epsilon? Because we have got a sequence which is convergent in X, but we have not used the meaning of it. For applying that meaning, we have got this epsilon here with some particular condition. I'll just make one more point here. When we have to prove a sequence is convergent, we have to say that for every epsilon greater than 0, some condition should be true. But we have here got convergence informed. We have already got through completeness of this matrix space that the sequence is convergent. So we have to use here. So for using, what we'll do is we'll choose any epsilon. We can choose any epsilon. So in particular, we are choosing through this trick, this epsilon like this one, and this will help actually. And we will I'll make you understand that how in this step, if you don't even remember here that why we are choosing epsilon like this, after this step you will understand that why we can choose like this one. So we have chosen epsilon greater than 0 with some particular condition, and let us simply write the definition of that xn converges to P means what? Corresponding to epsilon greater than 0, there exists some n not belonging to n such that the distance of points of the sequence from the distance of these points from the limit P will be less than epsilon after all n greater than or equal to n naught. So that's simply this thing. Now, what we will do is we'll apply the meaning of it. Means we'll see that what is this distance. We'll use this condition, but with a condition which is coming from what is this? This is distance of P and TP. It is, we are using again here triangular inequality, that T and TP. We have distance between xn and p. So let us apply here what? Distance between p and tp is less than or equal to distance between p and some xn plus distance between xn and tp. And what xn will be particularly keen for? Will be keen for probably this n satisfying this condition. Now let us see what this happens. We have got distance between p and xn, which is less than epsilon by condition number 5. We can put this as less than epsilon. So this part is less than epsilon. But what is this? This is distance between xn and tp. So what is xn? it's image of t previous point xn minus 1. So this is distance between this one. But if you recall again contraction mapping, it's distance between image points. Both are image points. Apply the contraction mapping, it's alpha times the previous point. So what it is, it's distance between xn minus 1 and p. So what we have got is distance between xn and xn minus 1p. See, if we choose n such that not only n is greater than equal to n naught, but n minus 1 is also greater than equal to n naught, I can same way apply epsilon, this definition with respect to epsilon here also. So what will this become? For n minus 1, instead of n, what I will get is distance between xn and p is less than equal to distance, this is less than epsilon. So for n, if I replace n minus 1, if it is greater than n naught, what I will get is distance between this is less than epsilon. So this will be less than epsilon. So I will get epsilon plus alpha epsilon. When it is true, means if I choose this n for if n minus 1 is greater than n naught. I can choose, means I can choose any n. So what I will get is this distance between p and tp is less than epsilon. So it's strictly less than epsilon times 1 plus alpha. Now, if I want to contradict something, what I will do is, means I will say that this is, means what I have assumed here, epsilon is less than this, but what I have got here is this distance epsilon is greater than, if I take this 1 plus alpha here, see, if I take this 1 plus alpha here, what will happen? Epsilon is greater than this distance, means this upon 1 plus alpha. So here we are able to prove that epsilon is greater. So for proving some contradiction here, what we have assumed that epsilon is less than that particular thing. So if you are able to understand this, there is no need of remembering this. Otherwise, just remember this and put here. And then what we have got by the putting this distance here, 1 plus alpha divided by that. So we get a contradiction to this 4, and therefore this contradiction proves that no, that distance between P and TP cannot be more than 0. It has to be equal to 0. So distance between P and TP is 0. That means TP is equal to P. That means it's a fixed point. So proof is almost done. What is remaining? We have proved that P is a fixed point. What was contraction mapping theorem? The statement was that we have to prove for a contraction mapping on a complete metric space, it has fixed, unique fixed point. We have proved fixed point, but uniqueness is still to be proved. That's just very simple. I have already discussed as a hint to it. So what is fixed point? Means we have to prove uniqueness. We have already got P as a fixed point. So P is a fixed point. We will say suppose the Q is also a fixed point. Means that TQ is also equal to Q for some Q belonging to X. And then what we will prove actually, we will prove that this Q is nothing but equal to P. So that will prove that the uniqueness of the fixed point P in this matrix space. So what we are going to get is Q is a fixed point. So TQ is also equal to Q because P is a fixed point as proved earlier. So this line is coming from here only. TP is equal to P. Now the trick is nothing big into it. Just apply because we remember the contraction mapping. So distance between TP and TQ, because T and Q are the 2 points. So distance between TP and TQ will be less than equal to alpha times distance between P and Q. That's coming from contraction mapping. But what is this? This is, these are 2 points. TP is what? P only. TQ is what? Q only. So what is this distance? This is nothing but distance between P and Q. These 2 points replaced with P and Q. So what we have got? dpq is less than equal to alpha times dpq. So let us take it here. So by arranging it, we will get that 1 minus alpha times dpq is less than equal to 0. But we have already discussed that 1 minus alpha will be what? It will be positive because alpha is between 0 and 1, strictly between them. So therefore 1 minus alpha is positive. I can divide both sides by that. So what I will get is distance between P and Q is less than equal to 0. Now it's obvious that distance can never be negative. It's always greater than or equal to 0. So we prove less than equal to 0 and it's greater than equal to 0 also. So the distance between P and Q is equal to 0, and that's how we prove that P and Q are equal. That proves the uniqueness of the fixed point P corresponding to the mapping T. So that's how we prove that P is a unique fixed point for this contraction mapping T. That proves that every contraction mapping on a complete metric space has unique fixed point. That's the contraction mapping principle. So that's all the end of the video. Thanks for listening this result and this video. God bless you all.